it here. That's the secret. Like when you say success, like what do you mean by success first and foremost, right? So like most people use terminology that we hear all the time. Success, happiness, like these types. Love is another one that we hear all the time. But then the question comes is like, what do you mean when you're using these terms? So if you ask me, like, what's the secret to your success, right? The reason why for me it was an odd question is because as soon as I heard this word success, I'm like, I don't have any. Like, I'm not going to know if I'm going to be a success until I go stand in front of my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And either he is accepted by his rahmah and he forgives me and I will enter into Jannah, or he won't. And that's the only real success. And that's the only real failure. If I fail at like a million things in this life, but each one of those I learned something, and that thing that I learned brings me closer to Allah, then am I a failure or am I a success? Now, from a Dunyawi perspective, they'd be like, the guy has a million failures. Like, how in the world can he be a success? Look at all those failures. But a Muslim will look at it in terms of the akhirah and think that my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me these failures, then he gave me the ability to learn from these failures. I grew closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and now on Yawm al-Qiyamah, I am a success by Allah's standard. Musta'id, inshallah.
So, can you just repeat the question when somebody asks you?
Oh, yes. Okay,
Just
no
repeat
problem. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa barak sallam bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Plus you cheated, you went live on the, I didn't know you were live. Okay, so this is the 10th and final session, deposit, if you will. And we are wrapping up the show today. I am not going to take up too much of your time. I would like to leave the vast majority of this time for any questions specifically over the subject matter that we covered over the past 10 weeks, inshallah. Please stay within those confines. Now, so what did we hopefully accomplish? If you look at the subject matter that we covered on a week-to-week basis, right? I think a question came last week, or there was like, but it prompted me with something, and I was talking with the brothers afterwards. If you'll notice something, with I think each week, for the most part, there might have been one or two exceptions, but there are exceptions. You'll notice something. Did I bring you a bunch of ayat of Quran, a hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu salam? No. Why? Because it shouldn't be necessary. It should not be necessary. The level, number one, we're not talking to children, we're talking to adults. Adults that are like, I think mostly like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So hopefully you're exposed, because we're not talking like this is not, we're not into the niyat, okay? We're not into like, we need to have academic discussions or there's academic discourse. Like we're talking about the fundamentals. Look at the subject matter for each week. These are things that kids are supposed to know before they leave middle school. Bare minimum. Bare minimum. Remember, because we were talking in the very beginning. Remember, I said Aqidat al-Tahawiyya should be finished before that child leaves high school. And I'm not talking about a reading. I'm talking about detailed, where again we focus on practical application. They get to ask questions, and the ustad, the person who is conducting the course, should have the intent that I want every last student, hopefully, inshallah, bidhnillahi ta'ala, Allahu yahdi man yasha, but to leave here without having any doubts. They know who they are. So they don't leave high school without knowing exactly who they are as a Muslim. That's what we were talking about here. This is not some like lofty, high-level academic discussions. We're talking about basics. The vast majority of what we covered is required for you to be a Muslim. So if we are in a situation where we as Muslims now, when I'm talking to the Muslim community, where you need a bunch of ayat of Quran and a hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, then that is, and I don't mean this in a mean way or an aggressive way. I'm just stating a reality here. Then that means that you do not have the background internally with the Quran or with the hadith, right? So that's the reason why you're asking me that even on that basic level, you do not have a basic level knowledge, basic knowledge level of Quran and hadith, to where, for instance, well, You guys, you're the example. So immediately after, I've got various like brothers and everything, and like mashallah, it made me think of this ayah of Quran, and it made me think of this hadith, and it's like exactly that's what it does in the heart and the mind of a Muslim, right? It happens to me too. So I'm sitting in, even me, I still like sit with my mentors. I still take classes. I still go to khutbahs just like you guys do, right? And as I'm sitting there and as I'm listening, right, I'm doing what? It's like it's like it's like the sheikh, it's like he's pulling pegs, right? This is holding up all of this. So he pulls this peg because he knows that when I say this, you're going to think of this ayah of Quran or these ayat, or you're going to think of this hadith, right? And even to the extent for ulama, mashallah, I'm not expecting you guys, but for ulama, sometimes the sheikh, the teacher, the only thing he's going to mention is the rawi. That's it. So for instance, just recently today, so if I mention the hadith of Makhul, all right? So if I'm sitting with ulama, especially Hanafi ulama, and I mention the hadith of Makhul, they already know pretty much I'm talking about the subject of riba. Do you see what I mean? I don't need to state the hadith. I don't need to like go into the details. Like they already know the hadith. They already know what the discussion is about. All I got to do is mention hadith and boom, everything else is mafhum. On this level of discussion that we're having, right? It's not even discussion, because this is not like the stuff that we covered is not open for discussion. It's just statement of fact. Here's reality. That reality is now, if you like, just go over because it's really like 8 weeks, right? Content, substance wise. You take that 8 weeks and read Quran, because this is one was requested, right? Everywhere I go, here's a question, everybody. Have you done a complete tafsir of Quran? There's two ways. Number one, you could go through and do your own reading. For instance, Tafsir ibn Kathir or Ma'arif al-Quran is an excellent one as well, right? That's one level. That'll kind of like tide you over. You don't have access to ulama or what, like, okay, fine. Then there's like, okay, you can like, mashallah, maybe you can catch the YouTube thing. Okay, there's like legitimate scholars, mashallah, who are doing tafsir, and mashallah, you keep up with that, and okay, and alhamdulillah. But then there's a whole nother level. Then there's a level of tafsir like the Sahaba did tafsir, where now they are doing what? They're developing a relationship with al-mufassir. Nabi alayhi salatu salam. The Quran is coming from him, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The explanation and understanding is coming from him, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The application and implementation is coming from him, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For them, they developed a relationship with the person who knew the Quran more than them. Why? They understood the value of that relationship because they didn't just want the information, they wanted the application. That's the difference. They were focused on implementation. We're focused on collecting information. So for them, it was about tafsir, was about like, no, I have to do this. So Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, when he says that he's memorizing Quran, for instance, how did he do it? Ashra, 10 by 10. And he explains his process. So he says that I memorized 10 ayat of Quran, understood them, put them into practice, and only after I had completed all 3 would I move on to the next 10. This is their understanding of Quran. This is their understanding of a hadith. A hadith to them was just like Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam putting the Quran into practice. It was the hikmah, right? It is the wisdom behind the practical application of that knowledge, of that information. So if you have value for application of the Quran and implementation of the Quran and obedience to Allah, by default, you must have an immense and intense love for the Sunnah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. If you do not, then there is a discrepancy. There's a discrepancy, a misalignment, if you will, right? The reason why we did this particular course, we stated it in the beginning, it's for this reason, is that we want to focus on like, okay, yeah, let's cover it, but let's cover it from the perspective of implementation. Like, let's ask ourselves the question, like these types of questions, for instance, like, have you read a tafsir? Have you gone through a tafsir? And best thing is, have you developed a relationship with a scholar of Islam that now that, mashallah, has the experience, has the knowledge, has the background, to where you can develop a relationship with that individual, where not only is he going to teach you the Quran and the meaning of the Quran, but because he's learning about you too. So now he is going to be able to help you with the application. He's going to understand your background, your mood, your temperament, your life struggles, right? The specific variables or dynamics of your unique life, right? And help you with that process of implementation. But when implementation is not the priority anymore, well, then we don't need living, breathing ulama. And fiqh is even al-imam al-hayy. It's like the living imam, like the imam of your masjid, right? This is actually a huge part, if not the very core of everything that he's supposed to be doing. Everything else is kind of like an offshoot of that, right? You're talking about teaching the kids Quran, you're talking about leading salat, you're talking about Ramadan. Isn't that an offshoot, right? Like, that's implementation. That's implementation. So it starts with what? Tafsir. It starts with tafsir. So that explanation. So this is where, like, now, have we done that? Do I know what sickness is? Like, mashallah, usually, like, we all have a variety of sifat or qualities, attributes, characteristics, right? We have a variety of them, good, bad, and ugly. Do you know which ones are which? Which ones do you have that are good? What are the bad ones? What are the nasty, ugly ones? Do you know what they are? If you do, here's the thing. For the khair, right? Al-mahmudat, like these praiseworthy attributes that Allah Ta'ala has blessed us with by His fadl. Do we recognize them so that we are giving gratitude to Allah? And that's what I'm talking about, alhamdulillah. I'm talking about, are we using them for the khidmah of the deen of Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam? So if I have been given like above average intellect, that's from Allah. Am I using it for deen? If I've been given physical strength, am I using it for deen? If Allah has blessed me with wealth, am I using it for deen? If Allah Ta'ala has blessed me with, like a healthy social network, am I using whatever Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has blessed me with internally, externally, is to be used for the deen of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's how we show gratitude. And that's how we fulfill the rights of every ni'am, every blessing that comes from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, right? So every ni'mah from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, min al-ni'am, like there's a bunch of them. We can't even begin to count them, Allah Ta'ala says. So now, are we showing gratitude for what we've been given? The madhmumat, the ugly stuff, the blameworthy stuff, the impediments, the barriers between us and Allah. Do we know what they are? What are my issues? And if I know, here's the question. Are you doing anything about it? If not, why not? Ego is a subtle thing. Hopefully, inshallah, we're getting the whiteboard situation tackled. But I was sitting today, and I'm done after this, and then we'll open up for Q&A. But I was sitting with a brother today, and I was trying to show him just how subtle nafs is and ego is. Because most of the time, like you use the word, this is a big thing I'm going to try to focus on here for the remainder of the year, and hopefully moving into 2024, if Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala blesses me with enough, long enough life. But we're using too much terminology. We're using too many words, and we have no idea what these words mean. We have no idea. I mean, completely clueless. So I say arrogance, and I'm thinking people know what I mean, but they don't. I say ego or nafs, and I think people know what I mean, but they don't. They have an understanding, not the understanding, not an accurate understanding, not even a correct understanding, but they have one. They have an understanding. And the thing about it is I have to like again like think about my responsibility, my accountability. When I'm approaching you or if I'm addressing you, I have to be specific. Now the problem is that I'm using terminology or if I'm explaining things using words because that's what words are for is communication. I'm trying to convey an idea, feeling, emotion, and understanding from me to you. So now, if I'm transmitting, but something happens with the process of reception, then I can keep transmitting all day long. The point and the objective is lost because of reception. There's an issue with reception. Here, what's the issue? Terminology. I say one word, I mean one thing. You hear that word, you think something else. Right? This is a huge problem. So I took a young brother through today. So I just wanted to show him. It's like, look, I'm gonna take you through like the course of like what happens when somebody learns something. Okay. So I showed him, said, okay, now you're here, like you learned something, and this is what you're supposed to do. And we went through a whole process. So did you do it? No, why not? Because this, that is this, and every last at the end of the root of everything, no matter where it went, was ego. It was your nafs. And he's like, I didn't even realize, like, this is like how, like, oh, here it is. It's right there in front of you. Trust me, brothers, sisters. Okay. Our egos are an issue. There's so much that we suffer from today because of egos in marriages, in families, in communities, on boards, in organizations, and dealing with issues and challenges. It's like, subhanAllah, it's like you're dealing with this issue, right? It's like, say, for instance, you have issue like A, right? And instead of dealing with issue A, all the people who come bring their egos. And instead of like dealing with the actual issue, we end up like lost in the pettiness between and the superficiality of everybody's egos warring and waging war upon one another. And what happens when the ego is activated? The learning process is put on hold. No learning at that time. No learning at that time. It's just like, if you ever heard the saying that if your mouth is open, your ears are closed. You've ever heard that before? If your mouth is open, your ears are closed. They don't, like, you can't have both of them open at one time, right? If your mouth is open, your ears are closed. Do you know how many people like will actually sit and like we like physically you understand it, but do you even like realize, like, I'll give you an example of a subtle ego. Do you know how many people will actually sit in a daras or some sheikh and he's doing the best that he can? May Allah Ta'ala bless him and help him and accept all of us and change all of us. But he's doing his thing and like he'll have people that are sitting there in front of him and they aren't really like, they're not listening. You know what they're doing? They're sitting there in their minds, they're going through a refutation process. They're arguing with him in their own heads. So they'll miss out on all the benefit because they're too busy like trying to in their own heads prove how smart they are and how right they are and how much they think they know. Okay. Here's the catch. This is how you know it's your ego. If you were right, most times they're not, but if they were right, if you had this ego issue dealt with, do you know what happened? You would have sat through that program and you would have got so much benefit. Why? Because you would have looked at it, the things that you'd heard before, and now you're hearing them again. You would have looked at it this way, right? Like a student, like a humble abd of Allah. You would have, Allah is having him say this again as a reminder to me. Then I have to ask, now, Allah has put in plan. Allah made you listen to this before, and now Allah's making you listen to it again. Now, the question is, you heard it the first time. Did you put it into practice? And now, if not, why are you surprised you're hearing it the second time? And if you are now hearing it the second time, here's the question again. Are you going to put it into practice? Right? Now, mind you, this is something that I've already know. I've learned it. I know it. Yeah. Right? I'm getting a benefit. What if he makes a mistake? He's saying something wrong. Do I need to spend the whole time No. Why? Because now I am also going to learn something. I'm going to learn what not to do. I'm going to learn what not to say. I'm going to learn how to avoid making the same mistakes as this individual. And then on top of that, I have to question my own knowledge. What if he's right and I'm wrong? Maybe he understands something that I don't yet understand. Maybe he has a deeper knowledge. Maybe I need to talk to him afterwards to find out, like, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who lacks understanding. Maybe I'm the one who needs the clarification. It's possible. And then here's the thing. The only other category is what? Something brand new. Those are the only three possibilities. Now think about that individual who's sitting there, like just engaging in this rad and like, oh, I think, in my opinion, and I feel, and my understanding, and I heard from so and so, and I watched on YouTube, and like I, me, myself, I, feelings, opinions, and this thing and that thing, and you're gonna walk out of here, and you're gonna have the same amount of like doubt and confusion, lack of clarity, and you're still gonna be the victim of your own ego. Completely engaged in the process of self-sabotage and self-destruction, and unconscious of it at the same time. That, my dear brothers and sisters, is a nightmare. That is a tragedy. Not, well, you like somebody dies, like, oh my gosh, it's such a tragedy. They're only 24 years old. That's not a tragedy. That's reality. What are you talking about, tragedy? Did he die as a Muslim? No, he died as a Muslim, but so young. It's like, what's so young? When I know this is a tangent, but like, dhikrul maut is good for all of us, okay? I just want to ask this question. What you because nobody's giving me an answer yet. Can somebody please tell me what age is the age that we've determined is too young to die? Well, where's the number that's like where you stop saying like, oh my gosh, they were so young? Like, where's the cutoff line? It's got to be like an exact date, right? What is it? 70. Yeah, you see what I mean? Otherwise, 68, so young. He could have got another 20 years out of this whole life thing. So young. MashaAllah. Such a tragedy. Not a tragedy. You know what a tragedy is? Living this life in the disobedience of Allah. That's a tragedy. A tragedy is not developing a relationship with this kalima la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's a tragedy. A tragedy is not knowing Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. That is a tragedy. Your role model for your existence, and you never knew him, or you don't know him, or you had an opportunity but you refused it. That's a tragedy. Showing up in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not being eligible for your salvation is a tragedy. Death, loss, it's just part and parcel of hayat ad-dunya, the life of this world. If we take this deen and we put it into practice, if we understand our aqidah and put this aqidah into practice, all that stuff, like the generic terms, like this, what's become genericized, taqwa, tawakkal ala Allah, sabr, like all of the, the laundry list, beautiful terminology. Beautiful terminology. Each term is an ocean in and of itself, and they're all interconnected. They're all interrelated. It's beautiful, but we'll miss it. Why? Because we're not putting our deen into practice. We're not intending to experience Islam. You want to see the beauty of Islam? Experience it. It's like somebody like, you sit here and I'm going to tell you about the sunset. Oh, and there's this color called red, and there's a color called yellow and orange, and it kind of looks like this, and then the ball of fire like drops below the horizon, but it's really not, because like they're two balls in space. But okay, but and I'm gonna sit here and I can describe it to you, and I can give you the details and blah blah blah, and we can have discussions about it, the different types of sunsets, and oh subhanallah. But at the end of the day, we can get all academic. We could talk about like, see, actually what's happening is that as the actual direction, as the rays of light are entering into the atmosphere, right, in active stratosphere, and they're like, okay, fine. Go outside, watch the sunset. No amount of talking will beat that. No amount of explanation will beat that. Just go outside. Go to a beautiful place where there's no man-made things. You just stand there in front of Allah and watch the creation of Allah. Watch Allah make the sunset. Experience it. Experience your Islam. That's the reason why we did this series. To encourage everybody to not only know what you believe as a Muslim and be 100% sure about it. And it's not about your opinion. It's about reality. It's about truth. It's about facts. And experience it. Take it. Put it into practice. Love it. Cherish it. Cultivate it. Value it. And experience it. There are no words for what happens after that. It will be uniquely yours between you and your creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will be a very special relationship. It will be unique. I have mine, you have yours. There is some commonality between us, but you are unique. I am unique. We know Allah is definitely unique, right? SubhanAllah. Develop a unique relationship with the creator of the universe. Because think about it. No matter how bad we get, think about that. It blows my mind. No matter how many sins I've committed, Allah still wants to have a relationship with me. I know how many times I've disobeyed him knowingly. Right? And I've been on this earth now for a little while, long enough to I think this weekend we were talking about donkey carts, and I'm the donkey that gets to pull my own cart of sins. And still, the creator of the universe wants to have a relationship with me. Who am I in the universe? Think about it. Samir and I, we were on our way back. I was at a traffic light, and I just looked over at the curb, and there's this ant. Right? And it's crazy rush hour traffic. Everything is and there's this ant, right next to the curb. And he's just walking along. And I'm just thinking all of this is going around this ant. This ant is completely unaware and how significant this ant is compared to everything that's happening. And I'm in the universe, I'm less than this ant. I am less than this ant. But the one who created that ant created me. And the one who created that ant wants to have a relationship with me. What type of relationship? A meaningful relationship. For how long? Forever. Who ends up in the hellfire? People who didn't want a relationship with Allah. So you have to be away from him forever. You didn't want one. That's what it comes down to. That's the reason why. Think about it. You have people committing zina and murder and everything. They still end up in Jannah. Because there's one thing that they were at least willing to recognize, that he is my creator. وَحْدَهُ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. He's my creator. I'm bad creation, but I know who my creator is. At least our relationship has that much truth to it. Ya Allah, you are Allah, you are Al-Khaliq, and I am Khalq. So what's to say about us as Muslims? Oh Allah, I'm too busy for you. Oh Allah, I don't have enough money for you. Oh Allah, I don't have enough time for you. I don't have time for dhikr. I don't have time for salah. I don't have time to go to the masjid. I don't have time to learn. I don't have money for that stuff either. Then what are we saying about the type of relationship that we want to have with the creator of the universe? So then now if I spend this little period of time that I've been given for this reason, to develop this relationship. And during that time period, I'm telling Allah that I don't have time. I don't I'm preoccupied. I'm busy. Like, don't bother me, right? Why are you bugging me with all these rules and regulations and prohibitions and orders? And right, you make me feel like I'm confined. So now not only is the relationship not established, but it's a bad relationship because now I am looking negatively upon Allah. You see? This is what gets people to the hellfire. It's their relationship with Allah. They don't want it, or worse, they're angry and they're judgmental of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't like this. I don't want that. How come I can't have my way? How come I can't know this? How come I can't control that? How come Allah gets to know everything and I don't get to know everything? How come Allah gets to control everything, but I don't get to control everything? I didn't want that person to die. I didn't want that job. I wanted to get into that school. I want more money. How come I'm not getting it? I want to marry this one, not that one. I want this kind of kid, not that kind of kid. Ya Allah, I'm not happy with your decisions. Prohibitions, orders, follow this, do that. No, that's why they're miserable. That's why the reason why they cut themselves off from the help of Allah, even though it's right there. You and I, we know we're living, we're breathing, we have a shot, we have a chance, we can aspire to Tawbah. But Taba Yutubu means what? Turn. Turn to who? Turn towards Allah. But that's the catch, isn't it? You don't like Allah. You're upset with Allah. You're not happy with Allah. So why are you going to turn towards the one that you don't like, that you're not happy with, that you argue with, that you are at odds with? So they don't see any need for Tawbah. You see? That's why we do this. We have to take this deen and we have to experience it, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. It is not easy. There's no doubt about it. This is hard. The Jannah isn't free. The pleasure of Allah isn't free. This life, it is Darul Imtihan. It is the place where we are tested. The part that actually disturbs us is that, look, I mentioned this, it was off the thing last week, but then somebody told me, it's like, we were talking, and somebody told me, it's like, I overheard this. You should have put that, like, we all needed that. Okay, so here it is. Your nafs. Remember something. You don't belong here. Okay? This is not your home. Kun fi dunya ka'abil as-sabil. You are to be here like a traveler. This is not home, okay? You're not built for this necessarily, so to speak. Meaning what? Your nafs. Meaning your nafs. So what is, like, remember where we come from. Where do our parents come from? Jannah. What are we built for? Jannah. What is nafs about? Jannah. Okay? Now, what's the problem? We got to do the, what do you call it? We have to take the scenic route. Yeah. We got to take the scenic route to get back, right? So, like, parents started out there. They had to leave, okay? Now it's all about all the children getting back home, right? Where we belong, inshallah. All right? Now, where's the problem? In Jannah, your nafs, it fits there and it's so appropriate. I want to control. I want to, why? Because that's Darul Qudra. That's the place where it's about expressing your will, your desires. This is where Allah Ta'ala is saying, what do you want? Right? I am going to fulfill your desires. Forget your desires. Allah is letting us know in the hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, right? And in the ayat of Quran, because none of us knows what's in store for us. We've never seen it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that your nafs in this dunya, you think it's like a big deal. Even it's inadequate for Jannah. So I'm going to give you, you don't even know to desire it. Do you understand? That Allah has things in Jannah that you don't know about. And so therefore you have never experienced it. So you don't even know to want it. You don't even know to desire it. You've never experienced it. So you don't even crave it. And Allah's saying, like, you think your desires are something now. Oh, wait till your nafs gets to Jannah. Right? When we're going to let it free. And I'm going to fulfill all of its wants. Why? Because you restrained it for this short period of time. Because you were willing to restrain it for this short period of time so that you can make this journey from birth to get home. From birth, get home. Restrain your nafs. Now Allah's here. Whatever you want, take it. All of this. Nafs is purified, right? Because here's the thing. If nafs is so bad, it wouldn't go to Jannah. If your desires were so bad, they wouldn't be in Jannah. Jannah is a place of purity. Nothing impure can exist there. Nothing impure can exist there. That's the reason why, even for some individuals, the requirement of purification in the hellfire is a prerequisite before they enter into Jannah. Nothing impure can enter into Jannah. Didn't Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam explain this to us about halal food? Yes, right? You eat haram, that person, like what? It's got to get purified. It's in the body now. That body has got to be purified. That haram food has got to come out. Right? So purity is an issue. Nothing impure gets to Jannah. But nafs goes. We have desires there, I and want. So this is about what? Get a hold of reality. Get a hold of truth. Do not be deluded. Do not become confused, disoriented. Do not let your understanding of that truth and reality become distorted. Hold on to it. Absorb it. Acquiesce. Submit to it. Live by it. Let it establish your priorities. Let it be the thing that leads you to your reactions and responses in every set of circumstances, in every situation, and you will find success. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. We have to experience this now. Anybody have any worries, questions, problems, concerns at this time, inshallah?
I just want to say Jazakallah khair for all the effort you have put to teach us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us in actually putting this into practice. And not ask us about it in the day of judgment. Oh, you know all of this, mashallah, but as you said, did we actually put it into practice? But as you have heard from some of the feedback, it seems some people are on a different level. So, the majority here are beginners like myself, but it seems we have advanced students, mashallah. And you just mentioned about the hadith and ayat and so on. So what is your, what's next for them? Especially not the intro, the intro, like myself, are going to take a lot of time to actually put this into practice. But what about the advanced students? Like, is there any next steps for them? You think, like, for example, an already available, 50 lectures in depth hadith and ayat about aqidah, or a book that you actually recommend for them to read, or a alim to go and attend his lectures, to go into more details, or maybe even a degree in a school to go after, to learn about how to become a scholar in aqidah.
You asked like 32 questions all at once. MashaAllah. So let me find the root here. Give me all the branches, mashallah. Find the root. So, yeah, exactly right. Mashallah. Yeah, you made me scratch my head. Subhanallah. I like the short answer at the very root. There's always a next step. There's always the next step. There's no point where any of us get to the place where we're like, I'm done. Like I did it. I did everything I was supposed to do. I checked all the boxes. I'm done. I'm finished. There is no I'm done. You know when you're done? When you're dead. That's how you know when you're done. Okay, so there's always a next step. Um, but actually, okay. First, I got like this. You guys ask stuff and then I have to answer without making you upset. Let me propose a different understanding. And I'm going to give you the answer indirectly. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. What books did they read? What university did they graduate from? What classroom did they sit in? What were the timings of their classes? When did they take their semester exams? Right? When did Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, when did he hold his seminars, lecture series, intensives, etc.? When? What I'm saying indirectly is our understanding of the educational process and the epistemology of Islam needs to be revisited through a historical lens. Because a lot of what we talk about learning, but then there's learning how to learn. Right? There's the process of education itself. Like, so when we're talking about, epistemology and actually the philosophy behind education and the educational process, right? Islam has its own epistemology. And what's happened is that most of us, we are educated in the Western world, or even if not in the Western world, through westernized academia or academic setting, criterion, standards, etc. Okay? Now, within that comes an intellectual influence as well, right? Because we're used to it. We do it with all things. It's not like we're human beings. We do it with all things, right? We're used to doing something a particular way, and then we take that thing with us. It becomes a part of us. It's not that we're not talking about like people who've committed a crime. We're just saying that we need to recognize that the influence is there. Now, the problem, say for instance, I'm becoming an architect, engineer, doctor, or whatever, and I'm going through that Western process, like Bismillah, may Allah bless you, right? The problem only occurs when we try to take that epistemology and now apply that in deen. So we're taking an epistemology, we're taking standards, and we're taking criteria, etc., which are non-Islamic. They have non-Islamic sources in terms of the usul, the principles that are necessary, right? Foundationally, they are absent. They're not there. And then we're taking what basically is a system which is incompatible, for the most part, with Islamic epistemology, and we're trying to figure out how to fit this square peg into a round hole. Now, if you want to see the extent to what degree that is actually possible academically, I think Darul Qasim is a beautiful, shining example of that, where it's like, look, we're going to keep at the core. We have to keep the tradition. But in terms of like the packaging and everything and methodology, like, okay, like that part, like, mashallah, we have some room for adjustment. We have some room to make some modifications, because it's not going to compromise the integrity of our deen, nor the epistemology of our deen. And that's, I think, where we I hope that was like the nice indirect way of answering the question, inshallah.
But that's for the sincere people about like they want change. What about the people who do not want change?
I can't help them. There's nothing I can tell them anyway. Because look, Allah, once Allah Ta'ala is telling you like you have to change, right? And Allah Ta'ala says, "Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim," right? So once Allah Ta'ala says that, and then now like I'm just like some generic broke down representative of Nabi alayhi salatu salam trying to do the best that he can. I'm telling you the truth. There ain't no faux humility here. I don't need that fake stuff. I'm just telling you exactly how it is. So now I'm sitting here and I'm saying this stuff to you. All right. And I am teaching you hopefully what I know, and I'm scared to death like to tell you anything wrong or to misrepresent, right? And then the person is like, well, they don't want to change. Okay. Wallahu yahdi man yasha. For me, I keep it moving. I'm not going to be asked about whether he changes or she changes or not. Allah will ask me about that representation. So that's the part that's my concern. Did I represent Nabi alayhi salatu salam properly? As long as the answer and the sight of Allah, not me. Doesn't matter if I'm happy with it. It doesn't matter even if you're happy with it. Is Allah happy with it? So if Allah's happy with that representation, now I'm done. I'll do my istighfar and go home and yaktafi, inshallah. Whether people follow, don't follow, listen, don't listen, that's between them and Allah. Some of the Anbiya alayhim salatu salam died with no followers. Some with just like one or a handful. It's not unusual, right? The truth. Y'all don't have any more questions? If you don't have any more questions, yes, I was going to tell you a story. You don't get both, though. You either get the story or the question. You don't get both. Huh? We were Jama'ah. We all go together, brother. All for one for all. We're all in this together. Yes, Shaykh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I need not overemphasize how much valuable your talks, your series, the sessions have been. Alhamdulillah. Summa. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you more ability to deliver it and to disseminate it, and to the listeners wherever they are to implement and apply. My question is, having gone through with you so long with the blessings and tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with the audience who have been attending you or who have been very careful not to miss any of your speeches or any of your bayan, may I know what is next to promote and progress further, because you have carried along some people with you who are probably started understanding you with the blessings of Allah. Probably we were not aware of what was yesterday about you or about Aqidah or anything. So now we have come at a stage, and we are together in this caravan to move forward. May I know?
I love the way you put that.
What is going to be the next for this community, for this AMCO from your side? What are your intentions and plans? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the strength, forbearance, and long life, all healthy life, to do the service. Ameen. Ya Rabbal.
For us and for you. Lana wa lakum, inshallah. So what's coming next, inshallah? Again, we are following the template of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. We're following the seerah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So when we're looking at the Meccan period, like we know we can't go all the way back, but spiritually, like we can go through the progression. We can go through that same process. So when you're looking at the Meccan period, what did Allah Ta'ala put the emphasis and the focus on first? All right. So the first thing is Aqidah, that's exactly what we did. Now, was the next thing fiqh? Absolutely not. As we know, all the vast majority of fiqh and ahkam and everything were Madani in origin. Okay? The vast majority were Madani. So what was the next thing that they were working on? The actual sifat themselves, right? And the akhlaq of Nabi alayhi salatu salam, which is actually, when you're talking about sifat, you're talking about akhlaq. Okay? So this is where we're going to put our focus next also, inshallah. So we're going to talk about some of the mahmudat and madhmumat, some of these, the major and minor issues on the negative side and the positive side, right? And then how do we understand some of the ones that are more, prominent, right? That we experience these or we encounter them, whether it's from other people or whether it's coming from ourselves. Most of the time it's both, but we don't recognize that. But most of the time it's coming from both. But how do we recognize it? Again, talking about the subtleties, some of the things that we do that we may be doing wrong, or they're kind of like it's an impediment for us, but we're not realizing it. So again, we want to continue with this developmental process. I'm hoping and I'm begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that through my interactions with you, that Allah continues me through my developmental process, but then Allah ta'ala also uses me to help the community as well, so that we go through, like you, I love the way that you put it, like we're all in this caravan together, we're all traveling together. So how can we like keep this thing moving and growing? I'm not that guy to do, warm and fuzzy programs. So if we're going to be here, it's got to be with the intent of like, we're going to do something. Like, so over a period of time, there should be change, even if it's just, this group. Okay. But this group changing and growing and maturing and coming together, you be like, remember, Badr was only 313. It's all right. So, and we'll go from there. And then, so now with akhlaq on the educational side, but then also what I would like to do also as well, we talked about tafsir. All right. So we mentioned about tafsir today. We mentioned also about atmosphere and environment and so on and so forth. So again, sitting down with you, the community members, and hopefully, inshallah, with the board, and being able to structure something to where, okay, we're going to contract from this period to this period. All right. This is what we hope to accomplish. Then when we look at the next one, now we can say, now, did we accomplish that? Yes or no? And then do a retrospective. If yes, and alhamdulillah, what worked? Why did it work? How can we produce it? How can we build on it? If it didn't work, what can we learn from it? How can we avoid making those same mistakes again? How can we like move on from this? And then now, like, let's set the second one. So there should be hopefully, inshallah, a steady progression, at least for those who are willing, within the community, who are willing to engage, inshallah. That's it. Hopefully.
I ask another thing.
Of course. Bismillah.
That is that, mashallah, very beautifully you explained what is next going to be from your side, from the board management, or from the management of AMCO. My worry is that there's a handful of people who come up and present themselves to benefit from such occasions, from such valuable sessions. May I ask you that what strategy would you like to advise us so that we can spread the word and attract more people? Because unless the audience is there, unless the people who have to listen to you come with all the dedication and commitment, probably your efforts, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I pray, they go all, because you don't have to get your word from anywhere else except from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is there. But there should be some practical applications. Now, since you have been associated with AMCO so long, I would like to ask you a very straight question. What weaknesses you have observed, which if we eradicate, more people populate, come up and get benefit from all the efforts which you are campaigning along?
Is my bag. You can put these with those. This is for you to give to my wife and my children. There's a couple of things in my will that I need to I'll sign it. You guys be witnesses. Take that, drop that off to him. Because after I get done answering his question, this will likely be the last time that you people will see me. It's an excellent question. It's an extremely important question. It is a critical question, but it's a question I can't answer. It is a
follow-up of a key. Because the Aqidah has to be followed up.
I'm gonna talk with you guys after this camera goes off. I'm gonna share that with you. Okay, first it was you. There was okay. So here's your. Let me answer again. It will be indirect. Okay. We're good. I have to. Like I said, the question is important. This is a critical question. I am going to have to answer it respectfully, but indirectly as well. We talked about.
Not directly, you'll understand.
Okay. Jazakumullah khairan jaza. We talked about the seerah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. We also talked about, please forgive me. I'm referencing, I did a program at another masjid this past Jummah Friday evening, and that's in my head. So no, we haven't. In the seerah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, what happened in the Meccan period and the reason why why Hijrah took place is because there wasn't an environment, an atmosphere where they could establish ita'ah, right? And ittiba' Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And because his leadership couldn't be established, right? He couldn't govern the people. You see what I mean? And he couldn't control the environment. So it was like literally they never knew what was going to happen. You're making salat, and next thing you know, people are throwing the entrails from camels on your back, or this one's getting beat up, or this one's being killed, or this one's being tortured, and you just can't control the environment. So it's extremely difficult to grow and to develop within that environment. Now, those who did, those names we know, we love, they became superpowers in and of themselves. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. Very special individuals, these muhajirin. But the reason why Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was in Ta'if, right? We know the story with the kids and the rocks and blood and the sandals, Allahu Akbar kabira. And then also Yathrib at Medina was because they needed that environment. They needed that place where they could establish that environment and that atmosphere so that way, inshallah, the community could coalesce, right, come together and begin that process of collectively maturing and growing as a community, right, so that they can raise the next generation, education can be established, certain institutional norms can be established, etc., right? Normal Muslim society is what they were establishing. The problem is that those essentials are not understood, and we are lacking those essentials. And because of that, we're suffering in terms of how our communities are functioning. They're functioning from a mindset and from understandings which do not have a basis in Islam. And that is what is causing problems. All right, so the community, and it's not just like, because I have a very difficult time thinking of in an individual community. So even I'm sitting here right now in this area, I can't help but think of everywhere. So I've been to so many different masajid across North America, Canada, and the US, right? And you see the same things over and over again. So I have a very hard time just like isolating one place when I'm seeing it all over, right? And really, the notion of a community center, a community social center is the problem. Cultural center is a problem. If we get rid of cultural centers and we get rid of social centers, inshallah, then hopefully we can have spiritual centers, because that's really what will attract the people. When our social centers and our cultural centers become spiritual centers, then the people will come. I look at it like this. Sometimes we think that, the people are staying away, but I know some of the people in these various areas, right, that they love the masjid and they try to find like little quiet secret ways to go. And and that's crazy that you think about that, right? That they kind of plot to get peace in the masjid. When they are in the masjid, if something is going on, they don't go to major events or anything like that. They don't want to get involved with any of the social politics. They just don't want to, they want to come to the masjid for sajda, right? They want to engage in ibadah. They don't care, they don't want to come here and see people blatantly disobeying Allah. They don't want to come to the masjid and hear talks about politics. They don't want to come to the masjid and seeing the sisters dressed inappropriately, or people talking about business in the masjid, or arguing or fighting, or if you are from another culture, or if your skin tone is too dark, or you speak a different language than the majority group, where you now become marginalized, if not completely ostracized and isolated within that community. These are all issues.
But Sheikh, isn't that like a question of aqidah though?
Yes, because exactly what I said, right? Because the masjid is supposed to be a spiritual center. It is supposed to be the place of aqidah. But when it's turned into a cultural center or a social center or anything, I would pick your other thing, right? Anything other than the spiritual center of the community. It's a problem.
But Sheikh, like to follow up on Brother Muhammad's point, it's not only the responsibility of the masjid, more than the people are willing to actually come and learn, right? So, like, if they are actually not willing to come and learn, how can I change your mind, your understanding, and so on? And then we can, inshallah, have this masjid exactly as the Masjid Nabawi.
Roots, not the fruits, brother. Always with the fruits. You gotta go to the roots. If you want the fruits, you want the people to come learn, give them the environment where when they come into it, they feel it, right? Give them an environment when they come into that environment they may initially for instance, for the first year, they come into the environment, the only thing they're getting is the Jummah khutbah, but it's correct, right? Spiritual center. And then like they start out and then like, okay, like, maybe during Ramadan, they come out a little bit more. So meaning like, we can't like think that like everybody's going to have to change like next month. But what we can do is our job is, and that is facilitate the connection. Facilitate it. Make our masajid, in terms of the atmosphere, the environment, the type of reception that they receive, the way that we treat each other, right? Because we are the ones that establish the environment in the masjid. Human beings do. We do. Everything that we do in the masjid or anywhere else that you go, understand something. This is like on a spiritual thing. Please don't like get all bent out of shape. It leaves a residual effect. So if you are somewhere, you perform a good deed, it leaves a residual effect. If you perform an evil deed, it leaves a residual effect. In the like, I want you to think about like a tangible thing, because when I say effect, I'm talking about within the realm of causality. To the extent that I'll give you an example, in a house, there's a lot of sins being committed. Don't be surprised if you see the food spoils really fast. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is an effect. So the same way, when we engage, when we remove all the sins, no ghiba, no namima, no buhtan, all right? So all the backbiting and the slandering and the lying and the egos and the plotting and the scheming and this one wants that and this one wants this and this is my opinion. And now we got the, what do you call it? Now we got to deal with the neo-reformists, postmodernists, modernists, this group, that group, like this. Allahu Akbar, they're all insane. They're all insane. And it's a matter of what? Aqeedah. So now we don't have that environment in the masjid. But if we can actually develop it. So now when that individual, that Muslim, he comes through them doors and now he's making salat. He's like, I feel so relaxed, at peace, at home. I like being here. I like this feel. Now, like I brothers, like some of the brothers here, like we go different places. Like we go to like grab a bite to eat and we stop at this masjid and that masjid and right. And we always like rant like casually. We talk about the feel of the masjid when we come out. It's not a plan. It's not a right. It's just like as we come out, like, oh, like mashallah, like that masjid felt like it's so peaceful. Like I just wanted to, or it was like, that felt weird, didn't it? Didn't that feel weird? All right. We went to one last week and it's like, that was like kind of leave like with a creepy kind of feeling, right? Only thing we did was go in there and make salat with the jama'ah. But we left like with like a, like you just want to wash your hands and kind of like let some fresh air flow around you for a little while, right? But there was nothing that you would have walked in and be like, that's wrong, or this is wrong, or that's wrong. Everything like in terms of outward appearances was normal. But what did we feel? The atmosphere, the environment. It has to be generated. So sometimes you may have a situation where it's neutral, where a person will just walk in and be like, it's just kind of like, forgive the expression, but dead. Like there's nothing. Like they just walk in. It's like they're walking into like an empty office. Like there is no vibe. And then there's the ones where they walk in, it's like, it's negative. You're like, oh, you almost feel like you want to take a look behind you real quick, just make sure nobody's sneaking up on you. Yeah. And then there's the ones where you walk in and you're like, hold on, my feet still touching the ground. SubhanAllah. You walk in, you almost feel like you're floating. You feel so good. Allahu Akbar. SubhanAllah. It's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we generate that type of environment, inshallah. Trust me, like those people that will, first of all, are attracted to that type of environment. Because right now, We have to remember, like the type of environments that we may have generated in our masajid, there are a lot of people that they are outrightly repelled. I know people that cry. Remember where I'm sitting, mind you. I know people that cry, that they like would love to go to the masjid, but because of the situation in the masjid, they don't go. And instead because their hearts. وَقَلْبُهُ مُعَلَّقٌ بِالْمَسَاجِدِ. Right? Hadith al-Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, that his heart is attached with not masjid. Masajid is the word in the hadith. All of them. So for this person not to be able to go to the masjid because of the situation in the masjid, right? It's heartbreaking. So cries at home. Sits at home and cries from home because of the situation in the masjid. Yes. And this is not it's not rare. We were talking this week about some things, yeah? Like, this is not uncommon. So the good people are repelled. And the people who are like the people who cause problems, they get attracted. And then there are young people, right? So they're in their like 20s and everything. They're like looking at this and they're like, okay, the good people are repelled. The people that like even bother me are the ones who are here. So they also don't want to come to the masjid for the same reason. And I'm not guessing. I talk to them. I actually take the time to sit with them, to listen to them, to hear them out, not judging them, but just like, I'm here to listen. That's it. You share, I listen. Your job is to let me know. My job is to care. Talk to me. So I don't have to guess. I just have to tell you exactly what they tell me. And then the same people who cause the problems are the ones that come and say, how can we bring the youth to the masjid? What am I supposed to say? There's all these questions that always get asked where it's like the answers are there. You're not going to like them. You're not going to like the answers. Most of the time when people because for whatever reason, like Allah's blessed me to and put it in their hearts, I solve problems. I don't know. It's a good thing. Alhamdulillah. I have been given this ability. Even I don't understand it. It happens. So now people come and they ask this question, help me understand, okay, let's go through the process. Boom, boom, give me the details, We go through everything, right? And I'm just sitting there and I get to a point where I'm just like, oh boy. Oh boy. They are not going to like this. And more often than not, I find myself in these situations where it's like, you are not going to like what I have to say. It'll be correct. It'll be accurate. It will be true. But you're not going to like it, which means more than likely you're not going to be receptive towards it. So now how do I say this thing to you to get you to where at least you'll listen to it and maybe process it and digest it in the future? Hopefully, at least. My worst case scenario is that I say this thing to you in such a way that your heart becomes repelled from me. And now all possibility of me being able to have a positive influence on this person in the future is completely lost. And that's a nightmare for me because that's my fault. All right. So, yeah. So you hear me doing the whole, hoops and hurdles and whatnot. It's because there are answers to these questions. And some of these answers are extremely difficult to listen to. And there's a portion of the people that they're not going to accept the answers. They're not going to listen. And even if they did, it would just make them more angry. Right? And then they become malicious and then they want to attack because their egos get all triggered and flared. And next thing you know, you got all kinds of unnecessary drama and trauma. And it's pettiness. And still we're not dealing with issues. Now we're back into the whole social arena, right? And dealing with the whole egos in the social setting as opposed to the whole point was the masjid. The whole point was the community. The whole point was our kids, right? So, but again, let's make sure that we understand the situation thoroughly with clarity. Let's make sure that so we got all the variables correctly in the correct place and understood, and then let's work the problem methodically, systematically, okay, slowly, so that way because we have so little room for mistakes. And so let's go through this process where there's some things that we know that we can do that are they're positive, they will yield a positive result and it will absolutely move us in the right direction. Those things we're going to focus on and try to get those things done. Some other things we need to take a look at and see what'll work best, inshallah. And I need all you guys involved in that process, please, inshallah.
Any questions? Raise your voice or hand.
Subhanallah. No, there's no hands over there.
No hands? Ready? No hands? Okay.
Subhanallah wa bihamdihi subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
What's the
Subhana
story?
rabbika rabbil
The
izzati
story?
amma yasifun.
The story, I'm not getting
Salamun
it.
alhamdulillah.
Story.
برحمتك نستغيث. ماذا تريد؟
The story.
Oh, I said one or the other. Ya akhi. I told you one or the other, right? And then the masjid. Now you're saying like you want me to like.
We have time until Sheikh Khalid.
Nah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Your mic
I have
is
a
on,
question.
mine is off, which means you keep going. I'm
I have
done.
a question.
Okay.
What was the story, please, again?